Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Winners and Losers. Saturday morning, well, actually early afternoon, I should get that correct. Chelsea have just faced Liverpool at Anfield, Liverpool home game. The score was so exciting. It was a 0-0 scoreless draw, a ball draw, as they say. It was actually the first 0-0 draw between Liverpool and Chelsea at Anfield in the Premier League era. So normally a game that has lots of goals, but this one did not, Mikey. Take me through the game quickly. Let's talk about that. Then we get on to Liverpool. Then we get on to Chelsea.
Okay.
But tell me about the game.
God, what was there to say about this game? Like you say, Zach, we're so used to being treated to real thrillers between Liverpool and Chelsea over the years in this fixture, especially at Anfield, where the crowd's always pretty up for it for this game. Yeah, I mean, the first half was just almost devoid of all quality. Really, I know Chelsea and Liverpool have both had struggling this season, and we're going to get on to their kind of wider struggles later in this show. But yeah, there was just nothing was clicking, and that Havertz goal that was ruled out for offside, correctly so in the 4th minute, it felt like that could have been a real flashpoint in the game, and we would have seen a bit of reaction from Liverpool. As it was, I think Chelsea were the better team in the first half. I think Liverpool really struggled, especially in midfield. I don't think Chelsea were particularly good in midfield either, but it was a big call, I think, from Jurgen Klopp to leave out Fabinho and keep Basic. Sorry, I'm definitely going to butcher this name a little bit. I'll get it right at some point. Kept him over from the Wolves game, and actually I think he grew into the game. He looked decent, but actually I think their bigger problem was Thiago Alcantara, just still not at the level we know that he can play at. His passing was off. I think Harvey Elliott was probably the most incisive passer for Liverpool throughout the game. But yeah, they just struggled to really break the lines in the midfield. And I think that played into Chelsea's hands. But equally, despite being the more dominant side in the first half, Chelsea weren't amazing either. It felt like it was waiting for someone to come and take it up a gear. And I think, to be fair, Mykhailo Mudryk on his first Premier League appearance did manage to do that in the second half.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with him. Not only his pace that we all know that he has, that explosiveness to be able to get into the box, and it felt like, actually, we were saying, weren't we, at half time, that this is the kind of game, quite a messy game, where someone like Mudryk could really thrive. And it turned out actually his link-up play was almost just
better
as
than
good.
expected, that's for sure.
In the second half. So yeah, I think the subs that Chelsea made were good. I think Potter can be happy about that. And I also think the defensive display from a Chelsea perspective was pretty positive. Mo Salah kept quiet for most of the game. Cucurella, I thought, had a really good game, as did Badiashile, continues to impress. So yeah, not really many incidents to talk about in this game, but I did think the second half was better from both sides, especially Liverpool, who I think in that first 10 minutes of the second half looked really dangerous. But I think this game was, I don't know if you'd agree, Zach, a good marker of where these two teams are at right now.
Yeah, you know what? From a Chelsea point of view, I actually come away from that not too bad. If you'd offered me a point from an away game against Liverpool at Anfield, I probably would have taken it, considering where Chelsea have been recently. From a Blues perspective, I think that was a much better game. That kind of seemed like they were a little bit more calm on the ball. You mentioned Badiashile. Thought he had a fantastic game. That's his second one now in a row in the Premier League since he's come in. And yeah, looked brilliant playing against next to Thiago Silva and up against Mohamed Salah and Cody Gakpo. Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy way. I think if you offered both of these teams a point after the way things have been going for them, they would have happily taken it.
I don't know.
I know. Obviously, Liverpool got that win against Wolves, and it was basically the same side that had featured against Wolves. However, you can just still see that there is a lot of changes going on here. Both of these teams as well are riddled with injuries. It's not a team that even started Trent Alexander-Arnold because he's only just coming back from a groin injury. Fabinho on the bench. I mean, Nunez only just coming back. And say what you want about Nunez, he is always creating or doing something, causing some sort of havoc for the opposition defence. The Chelsea one, the list goes on. It might have even grown today after Chalobah coming off as well. And so, yeah, definitely a game, I think, two teams which were maybe worried about what could happen, possibly in a negative sense going into it. And actually, look, a draw between these two sides, a mid-table clash per se.
A mid-table clash, here you have it. I think this leads us on quite well to kind of the main subject matter of this.
Yeah.
You're calling this a mid-table clash Zach.
Jokingly, sure.
Yeah, but equally, I do feel like Liverpool and Chelsea fans have every right to feel a bit defeated now, right? Like, I mean, yeah, I think a draw was a fair result. I think the XG was only slightly in Chelsea's favour. Mudryk probably had the best chance of the game in that second half, didn't he? But yeah, I mean, this result leaves Liverpool after 19 games on 29 points. A win here would have taken them up to 6th on 31 points, up to 6th on 31 points ahead of Fulham on goal difference. Chelsea also stuck on 29 points, but with that extra game, having played 20, if Aston Villa were to win their next game, they would be within 1 point of Chelsea. This is an Aston Villa side that were looking at relegation not so long ago.
Crazy.
I mean, what do you make of this, Zach? Are Liverpool and Chelsea out of the title race? Because, I mean, we are still only halfway through the season.
Exactly.
But, like, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is two teams who are out out of the race completely?
Look, they are currently 9 points off of the top 4, and obviously they've got to hope that other teams don't continue to be successful, like Brighton, who are obviously doing incredibly well, and they're just 1 point above both these teams. And so, look, is it mathematically possible? Yes, I think with the way the Premier League goes, especially in the months between, say, like the end of February and the kind of mid-April, where you just see, like, this is where City normally will see this season, but normally just win games.
Europa League comes back.
Europa League is back. The FA Cup is firing, so on and so forth. And so that's where I think it'll be interesting. If a team can make it up out of Liverpool and Chelsea, it'll be during that era. Chelsea aren't in the FA Cup. Obviously, they are in the Champions League. Liverpool the same. And so that's where maybe the experience, the fact that, okay, there are players that have been injured will be coming back and hopefully having had a bit of a rest, and so we'll be able to drive on going forward. I mean, from a Chelsea perspective, the idea that Chilwell's going to be coming back, Zakaria will be back, Reece James will be back. There's another 6 that I'm just forgetting off the top of my head, but they'll be back, and they can hopefully drive on into these games. I think at the end of this game, and maybe I'm being biased, I'd like to know at home what you guys think, but I feel like Chelsea fans are maybe a little bit more positive coming out of this game. And maybe it's because of Mudryk and the future, and obviously all the new signings. I mean, João Felix is just a player who'll be back after Fulham. That the future might be a little bit more brighter than it is, or at least the nearer future might be a little bit brighter than it is for Liverpool fans. Look, do I think Chelsea are going to get top 4? Probably not. But it wouldn't shock me if we come to the end of the season and maybe they are 2 points out, or so on and so forth, because I think it is a possibility, and I think they have been in these positions before, and under especially for Liverpool, under an incredible manager who can just sort it out and get them playing back to what's needed. Now, what is needed is summer signings. I mean, we kind of, looking at that game again, the midfield felt like the biggest issue for Liverpool. You had a Cody Gakpo who took an incredible, how many shots?
7 shots it was.
7 shots.
Only one on target.
One on target. Nunez came on and looked I don't know, quite exciting. And so I think their front line is still not necessarily the biggest issue. It's that midfield to see what they do in January. But yeah, as I said, from a Chelsea point of view, Mudryk looks fun. He looks exciting, and he looks like the nightmare for every fullback in the league. I mean, Milner was playing. Milner faced up against him for 5 minutes. He got a yellow card and got.
There's a reason why Trent came on, and actually I thought Trent looked pretty good when he did come on. But I mean, I think Mudryk he looks really exciting, doesn't he? He does look really exciting, and a lot was made about the transfer fee, of course, but. Yeah, it's been a weird season for Chelsea, hasn't it? That summer outlay, I think, will always cast a shadow over this season for Chelsea, because in hindsight, it's so bizarre given that Tuchel was let go so early. But so far, the January signings look pretty impressive. Badiashile has obviously adapted to Premier League football very quickly. Mudryk, I think what was more impressive, I think Mudryk seemed to have a real good, despite only arriving this week, he already seemed to have a pretty good understanding of that Chelsea attack. A Chelsea attack that has been quite difficult to understand for most people for most of the season, in terms of the way that it operates. And I think Carney Chukwuemeka as well looked very dangerous off the bench.
They had a really nice little 1-2. So the ball kind of gets under.
So I do see where you're coming from, Zach. I think there's definitely some positive. There's some positives to take out for Chelsea in terms of what their future could look like, and The January spend so far suggests that Bowley is going to give Potter at least the rest of this season. And I think the pressure will really arrive if Chelsea can't go on and win 3-4 games in a row in the next month or so. But it is a tough month coming up for Chelsea. Let's have a look at the fixtures very quickly. 3 London derbies in the next 4 Premier League games. You've got a Southampton visiting Stamford Bridge within that. That should be a gimme, given the way that Southampton have played recently. But Fulham at home, obviously you lost them away. West Ham away, then Spurs away, and then Dortmund away in that first Champions League. Where do you see, realistically, where do you see Chelsea sitting in the Premier League at the end of February?
At the end of February, I think those, you forget as well, we played Palace actually as well. There's technically 4 London derbies in a row. We beat Palace. I think Chelsea in the away game to Fulham would have at least got a draw if they hadn't had Felix sent off, if not won the game. I really do honestly believe that. And maybe I am being overly optimistic. And again, after that kind of result, maybe I am really just kind of imagining it. But I expect them to get at least a point against Fulham. I expect them to beat a West Ham. I expect them to beat a Southampton. I also expect them to beat Spurs away, to be quite honest.
In their current form, for sure.
Yeah, with the way the two clubs are going, for sure. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let us know what you guys think will happen for the near future for Chelsea. Will Mudryk have scored 4 goals by that point? I mean, I'm already thinking about the idea of the Spurs right back, Emerson Royale, possibly having to mark Mudryk. It is very, very exciting. It's just nice to watch someone that's willing to drive at a player. And that's not the only guy. Madueke could be doing that too. Yeah. But for Liverpool, their next fixture is Mikey. Brighton in the FA Cup. We've obviously seen what happened last time. They've got Wolves, who they've beat recently. They've got Everton, the derby on the 13th of February. Newcastle, and then Real Madrid.
3 days later.
That's not easy.
Not easy. I think, no, and I think it's a weird one with Liverpool because we've seen, Klopp has been, he was obviously scathing of what was a terrible performance against Brighton, wasn't it? That 3-0 loss. He looks really frustrated. Weirdly, kind of Pep and Klopp both seem to have completely lost their heads in the last week, which is obviously great to see from a neutral perspective. But I'm just interested to see how they kind of react. I think, today, they could have lost the game today. Like on another day, they could have lost it. And I think Klopp's team selection in midfield would have come under a lot of scrutiny if that had happened. It'll be interesting to see, just what teams he puts out, what midfield he puts out against Brighton, how he goes to Molineux against, a Wolves team that have improved recently. It's hard to find answers for Liverpool at the moment. They still have, a huge injury list. Their new signings, for the first season in a long, long time, their new signings were really struggling to fire. Cody Gakpo, the longer he goes without a goal, the more his confidence is going to suffer. They've just got to pray for Jota and Firmino to come back in top form, and Luis Diaz, of course, who they just missed so much this season. We've chatted so much about Liverpool's problems this season, but I think at this point, if you're a Liverpool fan, I think you're just counting down the days until you have a slightly stronger squad to choose from. I don't know, Zach, any final thoughts on this game as a Chelsea fan?
As a Chelsea fan, look, I think most people at home will be saying it's probably more positive than I think they actually would have expected. They saw Mudryk. That was the fun point. That was really the talking point before the game. And so there we have it. But I want to know what you guys think at home about the game, about the futures of these two teams and the players within them. Gakpo versus Mudryk. How do you think that's going to work out over the coming months? And of course, get in the comments and let us know about the other games happening this weekend as well. If you want to see more Football Daily content, then click on screen right now. And as always, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.